Okay, well, welcome everyone. I'll call this meeting to order. First order of business, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none, I need a motion to move in the committee of the whole.
Purcell.
Moved by Purcell, seconder.
Ketchabah.
Ketchabah, all in favor?
Deputy Warden McPhail.
Yes.
Councillor Purcell.
Yes.
Councillor Martin.
Yes.
Councillor Marks. Councillor Marks.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Yes.
Councillor French.
Yes.
Councillor Giguère.
Yes.
Councillor Ketchabah.
Yes.
Mr. Warden.
Yes,
9-0, the motion is carried.
thank you. We'll move into staff reports. Administrative care testing overview.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you to members of council, I can get us started this morning. We have support from Homes Management as well as Human Resources for this morning's presentation. We'd like to collectively thank the Warden for calling this meeting and all members of council for attending and for your flexibility in your schedules. We have run into a bit of an issue with surveillance testing and have two additional items to discuss in today's council meeting. So thank you again. So we'll get started with the presentation. To provide you with a bit of background, surveillance testing is important because it helps us identify COVID-19 cases in our long-term care homes and allows us to be better positioned to contain the spread with our residents and staff. Elgin County and the province of Ontario are taking aggressive action to help keep residents and staff in long-term care homes safe. We've seen the devastating effects that COVID can have in long-term care homes, and we are taking every measure possible to avoid this in our Elgin County homes. So mandatory testing exists and came through from a directive from the province of Ontario. And it is an occupational requirement within our Elgin County homes to protect staff and residents from exposure to COVID. And all long-term care home residents and staff have to be tested. Staff have to be tested twice per month with tests conducted 2 weeks apart. And this testing will be required on an ongoing basis and until further notice. And this includes all frontline workers, all food service workers, management, contract service providers, and all staff are required to comply with this directive to ensure the safety of staff and residents. This test is invasive and it can be uncomfortable for some. It involves a healthcare provider inserting a thin plastic nasal swab 3 to 4 inches along the floor of the nose and through the nostril. For most, this test is momentarily uncomfortable and it causes short-term shock of unpleasantness. But for some, this test can be more than an annoyance, and some staff have reportedly experienced headaches, nosebleeds, and in some cases, anxiety. We have encouraged staff who are struggling with these symptoms to speak with their manager directly, as well as their family physician. Homes Management and Human Resources are committed to addressing concerns from any staff on a case-by-case basis. So there are a couple of different types of tests that exist. The nasopharyngeal swab is recommended as the best choice for COVID testing and provides the most accurate results. Other options may be less sensitive and slightly less invasive, and those may be available through family physicians or alternate assessment center locations. At this time, our local assessment center is only completing the nasopharyngeal swabs. So the first round of testing, mandatory testing, was completed in June, and at that time there were only a handful of staff who refused surveillance testing. Through our conversations with Southwestern Public Health, it was recommended that those staff remain off work for 14 days, after which, and pending passing a COVID screening test, those staff could return to work. For the second round of testing, we are finding that some staff are using this as unpaid vacation time. This is understandably concerning for those staff who are getting tested and working in the homes. who are now concerned that those staff who are refusing testing are coming back to work and increasing the risk of COVID within the home. Most staff are supporting this mandatory requirement, and we appreciate their support. They understand that this requirement is in place to protect them and the residents. We do have serious concerns with the growing number of long-term care home staff who are refusing this test. This requires council's immediate attention as we've reached critical staffing levels. And if we have additional staff refuse this testing, we may need ministry intervention in order to support safe resident care. So next steps, Human Resources and Homes Management have worked tirelessly over the past 6 or so days to draft a policy for council's review. So we will present this policy to council, and following any suggested amendments, we are anticipating and hopeful that council will pass a policy today. We're exploring different solutions which might enable us to conduct on-site staff testing. At this time, we are sending staff to the local assessment center, and this has the feedback received from staff is that this is inconvenient. So we are trying our best to get the testing on site. And virus testing techniques are constantly evolving. And there is a drive for faster test results and less invasive testing. So we will advocate for less invasive tests and provide staff feedback regarding the uncomfortable and invasive nature of the nasopharyngeal test to the Ministry of Health on behalf of staff. So with that, we'd like to acknowledge that some staff and the majority of staff have been completing this testing, and they're supportive of each other and supportive of Elgin County's strong desire to keep COVID out of the homes. And this presentation and the policy is really to address challenges with respect to a very small number of staff. And our team in general continues to be dedicated and committed to the care and safety of our 247 residents. With that, our team would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And if there aren't any, we'll pass it on to Michelle to do an overview of the policy.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Any questions either for Julie or staff or Michelle? Hearing none, okay, we'll go to the policy then, Julie.
Thank you, Mr. Warden.
So thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you to council. Julie, you did a great job presenting the information. I thought I'd just share a little bit of other information if that's helpful to council. So back in May, we did receive the directive from Premier Ford that all staff and residents should be tested one time in the month of May. So we did make arrangements for that to occur, and we had 100% compliance in the month of May. Just some additional information for you. When we were setting up the testing at the local assessment center, we did get some feedback from frontline staff, a bit of concern about going to an assessment center, potentially running into symptomatic individuals from the community. So we worked hard to set up some dedicated dates and times for long-term care home staff only, and they were very appreciative of that. Additionally, we did pay staff 1 hour straight time to attend the appointment, and the home circle staff did all of the scheduling of those appointments. It was a very organized approach, both on our end as well as at the local assessment. The time at the local assessment center truly was about 5 to 10 minutes in length. So the 1 hour was quite sufficient to include the travel time for staff as well. In June of 2020, when we received directions for staff to be tested twice at regular intervals in the month of June, we followed the same process. And as Julie indicated, we got feedback from a very small number of staff regarding the testing. So she mentioned varying degrees of nosebleed, headache, and anxiety. And through those conversations, we encouraged staff to take the approach when they went for their next test, to speak to the clinician, to really explain their experience with their prior tests, to make sure that They had the options, the discussion around options of different swabs so that the clinician can make the most appropriate selection. And then in July, we received on July 16th, the memo and the FAQ document from the Ministry of Long-Term Care and Ontario Health, and Julie's done a great job of covering the requirements within those. It also includes a requirement for staff to be tested if they are returning from an absence. And it was very clear within the directions of the memo and the FAQ document that homes should follow their policies and procedures to protect health and safety of their staff and residents, including those related to staff refusal, which really stresses the importance of our need to develop a policy. Within those documents, it also speaks to the swabs that are distributed by Public Health Ontario, and they're dependent on what they have available at the time. So they are unable to guarantee that requesters will be able to receive their preferred swab type. Following the June testing, we did receive feedback staff. They would like the option to attend other assessment centers. Maybe they live closer to an assessment center in London or Tillsonburg or Woodstock. So we did have conversations with our local assessment center, and we were able to accommodate those requests. I wanted to point out too that it's not just staff and residents that are being tested. Visitors, according to ministry direction, they must also obtain a swab prior to attending the home for indoor visits. It's also recommended for outdoor visits. So with the announcement of July, we did, as Julie indicated, have an increased number of staff expressing that they may or that they will refuse testing. And we have done a number of meetings to have education and discuss options and to have a good understanding of the reasoning why. So throughout all of May, June, and July, we've had a lot of conversations with human resources to work through strategies to make this a successful process for staff and to hear their concerns and implement those concerns. And with the latest document and directive, it was important that we develop a policy. So the policy, I believe that was attached for your review. It really outlines the requirements of the memo and the directives and the FAQ documents that we received. And we additionally had some meetings with our joint health and safety representatives and union members. And I'm going to turn it over to Amy to just speak about the labor relations piece. And then I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the policy.
Thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Amy, are you going to take it from here on?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden and members of council. So just a couple points to add. Following the feedback we were getting from a select few staff members about the testing, we called a labor management meeting last week. So that meeting included our national representative. We wanted to have the SEIU perspective on staff testing, and it turns out they've been strongly advocating throughout the entire pandemic for all staff to be tested for the protection of themselves, their family members, as well as their fellow co-workers and residents. So SEIU is very supportive of staff testing, encouraging their staff members to be tested frequently in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. And again, SEIU encouraged the employer to have a clear policy on this and follow collective agreement language. So we do have health and safety language that supports the joint efforts at keeping illness out of our homes, and this is one of those initiatives. It was even pointed out by SEIU that certain medical and other screening is a requirement of healthcare workers at all times, including vulnerable sector criminal record checks, TB skin tests, vaccinations are all an ongoing requirement. And during pandemic, staff testing is one of these requirements. To give council a bit of an idea, if we look at the numbers, it's really at least 95% of staff are complying for all the right reasons, going for testing without much feedback at all. And it's really the small percentage, under 5%, that are raising an issue. And definitely some staff have valid issues, and we're working closely with them to come up with alternatives to make sure they're able to have some form of testing to still be cleared. In the group of 95 of the staff. We're getting a lot of feedback that they're pushing the employer to do more to ensure all staff are tested in order to make them feel safe at work. They feel safer if everybody's consistently going every 2 weeks at least to be tested, and they don't support the ones that are just choosing not to be tested with an effort to get more time off. And we'll be working on dealing with any refusals that come in on a case-by-case basis and communicating this policy once approved with great clarity to all staff throughout.
Okay, thank you, Amy and Michelle, for bringing this policy forward. From my perspective, refusing to test is just not an option. The safety of our residents and staff is paramount. And thank you for bringing this forward. It does give those who are refusing another outlet, but just to say no is not an option. So I'll open the questioning to Michelle or Amy to council.
Mr. Warden, it's Dominique.
Go ahead, Dominique.
So through you to staff, are you aware of any other underlying issues other than the discomfort or medical reason that could be pushing staff to refuse the test and perhaps seek time off? And is there, if you think there are other underlying issues, are those being addressed?
It's Michelle. I think that's a great question, Councillor. So we've had a lot of discussion where some individuals have some level of disbelief in regards to the accuracy or the requirement or the need for the testing. So a lot of education has been done. We do know that it's not 100% accurate. We do know that the NP swab is the most accurate swab. So we've had some successful conversations through bringing some evidence-based research and data forward to those conversations with frontline staff as they've come forward. But it's mostly been anxiety and a negative experience that they had where they had a nosebleed or a headache afterwards.
Thanks, Michelle. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, Julie, I'm assuming that the process is there's adoption of the policy?
Correct, yes, that council approve and adopt, and that council receive the information and file it.
Okay. Mover and seconder policy, please.
Purcell.
Moved by Purcell, seconder.
Martin.
Second by Martin. All in favor?
Deputy Warden McPhail.
Yes.
Councillor Purcell.
Yes.
Councillor Martin.
Yes.
Councillor Marks.
Yes.
Councillor Jones.
Yes.
Councillor French. Councillor French. Councillor Giguère.
Yes.
Councillor Ketchabah.
Yes.
Mr. Warden.
Yes.
8-1, the motion is carried.
Thank you, Julie. We do have 2 items on closed session. Is there anything else for open session?
No, that's all for open session, Mr. Warden.
Okay.
That was lumped in.
Under closed session, we have 2 items. Under the Municipal Act 239-2, a trade or secret of scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality.
5, Mr. Warden.
Okay. The items from committee from the closed session. Item number 1.
Oh, sorry, we need a motion to rise and report first.
Okay, sorry. Motion or mover and seconder to rise and report.
Martin will move.
Moved by Martin, seconder.
Giguère, I'll second.
Second by Giguère. All in favor?
Deputy Warden McPhail.
Yes.
Councillor Purcell.
Yes.
Counselor Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Marks, Counselor Marks,
Muted.
Counselor French,
We had those strange.
Counselor French,
Yes.
thank you. Counselor Jiguer,
Yes.
Counselor Ketchiba,
Yes.
Mr. Warden,
Yes.
circling back, Counselor Marks,
Yes.
thank you. 9-0, the motion is carried.
Thank you. Now, the two items from the closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Be it resolved that the verbal report from staff be received and that staff proceed as directed.
Mover and seconder, please.
Jones.
Marks.
Moved by Marks, second by Jones. All in favor?
Deputy Warden McPhail.
Yes.
Counselor Purcell.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Marks.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor French.
Yes.
Counselor Jiguer.
Yes.
Counselor Ketchiba.
Yes.
Mr. Warden.
Yes.
9-0, the motion is carried.
Thank you. Item number 2.
Be it resolved that staff proceed as directed and draft a bylaw for enactment at the August 11th, 2020 council meeting.
Mover and seconder, please.
Martin.
Moved by Martin, seconder.
McPhail.
Second by McPhail. All in favor?
Deputy Warden McPhail.
Yes.
Counselor Purcell.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Marks.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor French.
Yes.
Counselor Jiguer.
Yes.
Counselor Ketchiba.
Yes.
Mr. Warden.
Yes.
9-0, the motion is carried.
Thank you. Is there any bylaws, Julie?
There is, we just need a motion to adopt recommendations from committee.
Okay. Mover and seconder for the recommendations for committee of the whole.
Ketchiba.
Moved by Ketchiba, seconder.
Jiguer.
Second by Jiguer. All in favor?
Deputy Warden McPhail.
Yes.
Counselor Purcell.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Marks.
Yes.
Counselor Jones. Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor French.
Yes.
Counselor Jiguer.
Yes.
Counselor Ketchiba.
Yes.
Mr. Warden.
Yes.
9-0, the motion is carried.
Okay. Anything else before we adjourn?
Just bylaws.
Okay. Bylaws?
Be it a first, second, and third read of bylaw 20-37, being a bylaw to confirm proceedings of the Municipal Council of the Corporation of the County of Elgin at the July 23rd, 2020 meeting.
Mover and seconder, please.
Jones.
Moved by Jones, seconder.
Marks.
Second by Marks. All in favor?
Deputy Warden McPhail.
Yes.
Counselor Purcell.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Marks.
Yes.
Counselor Jones. Counselor French.
Yes.
Counselor Jiguer.
Yes.
Counselor Ketchiba.
Yes.
Mr. Warden.
Yes.
9-0, the motion is carried.
Thank you. Grant, did you look at your calendar to see if you're available?
Yes, so the announcement's at 10 o'clock, and where do I need to be in?
Electronic.
Or-
Everything's online.
Okay, it should be no problem then.
Okay. All right.
Can Julie send me the information?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks, Grant. Anything else before we adjourn?
No, that's all, Mr. Warden.
Okay. Thank you for all attending. I need a motion for adjournment, please.
Purcell.
Moved by Purcell, seconder.
Marks.
Second by Marks. All in favor?
Deputy Warden McPhail.
Yes.
Counselor Purcell.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Marks.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor French.
Yes.
Counselor Jiguer.
Yes.
Counselor Ketchiba.
Yes.
Mr. Warden.
Yes.
9-0, the motion is carried.
Thank you all for attending. Have a good weekend.
You as well.
You.
Thank you.